Looks like Jerome Terry Sr.'s tried to tag me, but it didn't work. He's quoting Dwight Ball from about a year ago, and he's contacting, or trying to contact, all 4 candidates for Mount Pearl North. Our province has run out of time, says Dwight Ball. I must bring to your attention the immediate and urgent financial crisis that Newfoundland and Labrador is facing. Put it bluntly, our recent attempts to finalize our boring program, short-term and long-term, have been unsuccessful. We've no other recourse to raise the necessary funds to maintain the operation of government, including our healthcare system, especially at this critical time. So Mr. Terry is asking me and others, with the dire financial situation we find ourselves in a little over 10 months ago, in the middle of a pandemic, I have some questions for all candidates of Mount Pearl North. Put the camera on me for a second here. Mr. Terry, I see your questions, and I'm going to verbally respond to them, and I'm going to put the camera back on the questions so we can read along. Should we be holding a general election in the middle of a pandemic? Why or why not? I would say no is probably the best answer. We are legally bound by a legislative act, I guess it is, that says we must have a new election within 12 months of a premier stepping down. So we knew we were going to have this election on or before August. I would have preferred if we had waited a little longer and get people vaccinated rather than take the risk and go to an election this early into the year. Number 2, given our debt load, should political parties and candidates be making promises, changing or increasing programs without costing such changes or increases? We definitely need to look at the costing. It's nice to make promises, but until you actually see the books and know what we're looking at, it's kind of difficult to prioritize. And I think you've got the Greene report in there. Part of the challenge is we don't know what the Greene report's going to say and how much money we're going to have to spend implementing the Greene report recommendations. 3, should there be limits placed on spending and signage during an election, given all candidates equal opportunity? Well, as one of the lower budget campaigns, it wouldn't hurt. I honestly think signs being posted on public places doesn't prove anything. In fact, I spent a lot of time living in Ontario where you are only allowed to put signs on private property. Yeah, sure. I'm all for that. Let's limit the spending and limit the signage, because it should be a lot more than just who can buy the most signs. It should be about who has the best message. Should there be, number 4, should there be recall legislation implemented? I guess it depends on the type of recall legislation and how it would work. I certainly am open to anything that will force government to be accountable to what they've promised. And if we could find a way to put in recall legislation that will fairly allow the public to recall or cancel or fire MHAs, parties or leaders that don't live up to their promises, then I'm all for it. 5, if you believe national statistics, NL has the highest per capita public sector employees. Should that be reduced to the national average? I'm going to say probably not as a general answer, because it's not just per capita that you have to look at. You do have to look at geography. We have a lot of small towns in Newfoundland and Labrador that are physically, geographically far apart. And it's a shame that we just keep resettling these small towns. Sometimes it means you have to hire a few more public sector employees, have a few more offices open and buildings open. I guess ultimately we need to find a balance. We need to make sure that whether you live in a big city or a small town, that you're getting fair access to the government products and services that you deserve. And at the same time, if we do have cases where the public service is deemed to be bloated, then maybe we should look at reducing it. 6, should the government stop increasing spending as a way to stop increasing our debt and debt servicing? Yeah, definitely don't increase the spending. Let's try to keep spending either where it is or lower it. Let's look at ways to better efficiently spend. I question if the spending we're doing is all for getting the value for our money. Should parties make their platform available in print to voters at the beginning of the election? If so, an informed choice can be made. Ideally, yes. Sometimes we don't know when the election's coming, so in our case, as an NDP, we did not know exactly when the Liberals were going to call this election. So it's kind of tough to have a platform just sitting there waiting to go. I think you need a little bit of time to prepare. At the same time, we are out first. We got our platform out today, and I don't think any of the other parties have put platforms out yet, and we're less than a week and a half till voting day. That's definitely unacceptable. Should the Greene report have been released before the election? Ideally, yes. I think it's such a huge issue that it would have been nice to know what we're looking at. Again, it's tough to make projections and priorities when we don't know what the Greene report's going to say. 9 was the delaying of the Greene report a deliberate attempt to deceive voters of knowing what is to come. I honestly don't know. I wasn't aware that the Greene report was delayed as opposed to the election being called early. I do have concerns, though, that we're going to a poll before we know what this report says. Regardless of who wins, will anything change? I don't know. I honestly can't give you an answer. I don't have a crystal ball. But I can tell you what, if we put a diverse group of people into this House, of all parties, and send some independents in there, we're going to have more voices who are going to be able to hold the government accountable. If we elect a majority government, especially a Liberal majority, things probably will not change. So in closing, I'm going to put the camera back on me, say thank you for the questions, and I'm happy to respond. Any further comments or questions, let me know.